Okay, today we'll start Unit 5, which is Food Industry and Corrosion and its Prevention. Then what is this food industry? So why we have to study the food industry? We will see the only one topic. Then these are the topics I just elaborated in the previous class. So first topic is reasons to study and develop food industry. Then the next topic is food storage, food processing, food transport, and food preservation. Okay, there are any type of food industry will have a four type of operation, which is food storage, food processing, food transport, and food preservation. Okay, these type of operations has been carried out in every food industry. Then what is food storage and food transport? During food storage and food transport, we have to use many transportation means. Okay, we have to use some refrigeration mechanism inside that one. So we already know during the storage of food, we has to use some cold storage. You might have heard about this cold storage. What are the engineering aspects which we have to take consideration while just designing the cold storage? So we have to see in that topic. Then the next one is dairy industry, in which in majorly you have to see the pasteurization of milk. So high temperature and for a short period of time, heating is known as a pasteurization. So Louis Pasteur has been invented this pasteurization process. So in order to kill some pathogenic bacteria inside that one, so that the shelf life of milk can be increased. Then next topic is food irradiation. So what are its application to kill some bacteria? Okay, we nowadays we are receiving some sealed packets, some fruits or something airtight, air sealed containers. We will say that one. So air sealed containers will come after irradiating that particular food. After killing the bacteria or a virus, something will be there. That microorganisms that things will be just airtightly sealed that one, and they are sending to the grocery shops or some big malls. Then from there we are purchasing. So in order to kill the microorganisms, some bacteria, we will employ this food irradiation. So what are its application we have to see. Then the last topic will be food additives. So what are the types of additives which we have which we have to add, like food coloring stuffs, like some other which will provide some flavors. Okay, like this we have to see what are the food additives. Then what are those types and applications for the various food additions we have to see. So these are the part A topics, which is about food industry in this unit 5. Then the first topic among those is reasons to study and develop food industry. So what are the reasons to study about the food industry we have to see. So India is primarily an agrarian country. We all know this one. So entirely our GDP up to 35% is entirely dependent on our food production only, agricultural activities only. So large Indian population has been employed in the agricultural fields. So around 70% people has been employed by the agricultural fields. They are working in the agricultural fields. So our India have a population around the recent census. So 135.26 crores we are having. To supply the food and nutrition for this huge population, we need to transport, we need to process many huge tons of foodstuffs. So this is the primary reason. So many seasonal fruits, many seasonal cereals will be available. So in order to make them available throughout the year, around the year, we have to process that food. We have to increase the shelf life of that food. Okay, there is a popular estimate from the ASSOCHAM, so Association, Food Associations. So they are saying what they are saying around 30 to 35% food has been wasted, just has been degraded before their reach to the consumer, final consumer. So in order to lower the food wastage, we need to have a proper handling mechanism, proper processing mechanism, so that we can provide the foodstuffs to the huge amount of population which are present in India. So this is the paramount important reason which we have to study to develop a food industry. And the next one is India is the second largest food producer. So we are the agrarian country. So our country is mainly the agrarian country. Our agricultural activities mainly contribute towards the GDP. Large part of our agricultural activities contribute towards our GDP. So India is the largest and second largest producer of cereals or whatever the foodstuffs we are producing. It's the second largest after China. Then according to the government estimates for the fiscal year 2015 to 16, the country's total food market valued around 39.71 US dollars, billion US dollars, and is projected to double by next 10 years. 10-year means around 2026 it will reach to the multi-billion dollars industry. So potential for India to develop in the food sector, because every foodstuff we are producing here, we need not to import the foodstuffs from the outside. Our own, we are self-sufficient. We are also exporting some of our foodstuffs. If we can develop the food processing industry, various food processing processes inside India, it will be very much helpful for us to retain and as well as to export, to stop the imports and to export the major foodstuffs to other parts of the world. Then having successfully attained the self-sufficiency in food, so we are self-sufficient in terms of food production. So India benefits from marginal surplus in production. So we also have a surplus food amounts, surplus agricultural amounts we already have. So how to handle this surplus amount of foods which we are having here? So and is among the leading global producers of fruits and vegetables, milk, cereals, and wheat. So all these foodstuffs are produced in surplus, more than the amount. Surplus is nothing but more than the amount which our country is required. So to handle this surplus amount, we need to increase the shelf life. We'll call that shelf life. Shelf life is nothing but how much time that a particular product can be retained without any degradation. That is called as a shelf life. To increase the shelf life, only by increasing the shelf life of that particular food items, we will able to handle this surplus amount of foodstuffs in our country. Those we can export these foodstuffs to other parts of the world. So how can we handle this one? For example, if you see the mangoes, we cannot have these mangoes. It's a seasonal fruit. We cannot have a mangoes throughout the year. To have that mangoes throughout the year, we have been developed some food fruit pulps. Okay, like neat main, pulpy orange, or what we call maza and slice. Everything was developed. How they are just keeping that mangoes throughout the year? How they are making ensuring that everybody this mango juice is available throughout the year, using some additives, using some preservatives. They are preserving that one. So natural flavors they are just preserving, using the surplus amount of this mango production or something they are preserving. If you can see this one, what we call this pickles. Okay, pickles we are preparing. Why we are preparing pickles? So that it will last for the maximum amount of time, or to increase the shelf life of that particular material. Like tomatoes between 1 or 2 days it will be spoiled, it will be degraded, because naturally heat will be produced inside one due to the asphyxiation, or we can call due to some what we call this one, due to breathing nature of that particular fruit, it will be degraded. Obviously heat will be produced, that heat will just degrade that material. But when you pickle that tomato, what will happen? It will last for more than 1 year. To increase the shelf life, so like this process, like pickling, like converted into the fruit juices, like these processes has to be developed in order to develop our food industry. So we have a surplus amount of food available in our country, so that we can export and increase the foreign returns. We have to develop our food industry to a large extent. Not only the food industry, food processing industry, we have to develop a more. Already we are producing enough amount of food, but we don't have enough processing technology here in our India. Then despite its strong agricultural production base, a significant amount of food produce gets wasted in India due to inadequate infrastructure such as packaging facility we don't have, storage, transportation, cold chain, and low levels of processing. So we don't have a processing technology, a good processing technology. We don't have a wonderful storage mechanism like cold storage. Shortage of cold storage is there, because farmer has to transport that whatever the agricultural product is there, he has to transport to the market. Before transporting, lot of the material has been wasted, will be wasted, and in order to lower that wasted, he needs some cold storage. So we don't have an adequate infrastructure to provide that cold storage. During transportation, many materials will be spoiled. So we don't have a cold railways or roadways which are refrigerated roadways and railways. Because of this, large part of this fruit production, whatever the food we are producing has been wasted. So going into the waste. So according to the Ministry of Food Processing Industry, post-harvest losses account for 1.5 billion US dollars. That is nearly 1 lakh crores, we can say. Nearly 92,000 means 1 lakh crores annually. So 1 lakh crores annually we are wasting due to there is a lack of infrastructure, there is a lack of processing, there is a lack of refrigeration. So chemical engineers have a major role to play here because the refrigeration system entirely we can handle that one. The packaging system, the design of the packaging machinery, the design of a refrigeration, everything will be handled by only the chemical engineers. So chemical engineers has to play a major role in order to stop these losses. Around 1 lakh crores annually means it's a huge amount. We are wasting such a huge amount of money as well as huge amount of naturally of agricultural products. So we don't have to waste this much. So we have to study about the food industry. We have to develop the food industry. We have to invest in the more amount of food industry. We have to develop a food parks so that we can have a food sustainability. We can have a guarantee of food that will be last for years and years. So that we have to develop a food parks. We have to develop a various processing industries, food processing processes we have to develop. So research has to be undertaken by this food processing industry. Then overall less than 10% of the total population, total food produced is produced, processed into value added products in India. So if you see the value added products, like I just said the example of pickles, okay, that's a value added product. As such, if you take the mangoes, it will not have a much value. When we convert into the pickle, that will have a much value. As such, if you procure a fruit, its shelf life will be very less. If you convert into a juice and just preserve that fruit with some preservatives, then that cost will be increased, as well as because the cost will be increased because that is converted into some value added products. Okay, some packaged food, it has always been converted into some packaged food which will have a shelf life more than that of the natural fruit. Because of that reason, the price will be added. So farmer will gain from this type of food processing. And in comparison, the US and China processes 65%. So only 10% of foodstuffs what we are getting naturally from the agricultural activities, we can able to convert that only 10% of the food into the value added products. But whereas the developed countries and the developing countries like US and China, they can able to convert the 65% of this post harvest products into the value added products. So similarly, other developing countries such as Thailand, Philippines, Brazil process as high as 30 to 37 of their produce. Okay, the developed countries like US, the developing countries which are having much less land compared to India, they can also able to preserve their food produces by converting into the value added products. So India's vast agricultural resources alone create huge potential for investment in its food processing and equipment industry. So therefore, we have to invent some food processing processes so that our shelf life of the food can be increased. At the same time, there is a much investment needs in the equipment industry also, food processing equipment industry. So for India, there is a huge potential not only in the food processing inventions, but also in the equipment industry also, whereas food can be processed easily. The major areas holding scope for value-added processing are in the canning, packaging, dairy, and food processing, frozen food, thermo processing industry. So canning, packaging, dairying, these all the operations of any type of food industry. They have to preserve their food using these certain mechanisms, certain processes like canning, packaging, dairying, converted to some value-added like paneer, like these products. Then food processing, frozen foods. Okay, fish. If you take the examples of the fish, when you just catch a fish from the sea, what will happen immediately within one day? That fish will be just spoiled out if we could not use that. If you frozen that foodstuffs, frozen that fish, it will be lasted for more than 2-3 months. That's the advantage of this frozen foods. So anyway, the nutrition amount will not be lost. The flavors or whatever the vitamins will be there will be lost. That's a secondary. But we have to preserve our food so that we can consume for the long period of time. Then currently food processing accounts for almost 1/3 of the total food market in India. So food processing industry accounts for 1/3. So 1/3 means it's a huge market is there in India. The food processing industry is valued at 258 US billion dollars. So billion dollars, and is the fifth largest industry domestically in terms of production, consumption, export, and expected growth in the country. So it is the fifth largest industry. Okay, compared to other industries, the fifth largest. It will have a huge turnover around 258 billion US dollars. So investment, we need a large investment in this sector so that it will be developed. It will be increased twofolds. It contribute to around 14% of the manufacturing gross domestic product. So GDP, it is contributing around 14% GDP. Directly agriculture is contributing 35% GDP, and this food processing converting to the value added products contributing 14% of the GDP, and 13% of India's total food exports. We are exporting only 30%, 13% of the food to the other countries. Whereas if you have a strong processing network, strong logistics to transport this, we can export more amount of food to the other countries, as well as we can use inside our country also more amount of foods. So there is a huge potential for India to develop in this sector. Then according to the 2017 report by the ASSOCHAM, we will call this as the ASSOCHAM, Associated Chamber of Commerce and Industries of India. So this is a not-for-profit organization. It's an organization. It will report it will give an annual report on how we are just increasing. What is the GDP contribution of this food processing sector? What we have to do? What are the research suggestions? Everything it will be reported by this ASSOCHAM. The country's food processing industry is expected to reach 482 billion by 2020. So it is expected, not at all reached. Though we have already in the 2020, it is not at all reaching because there's a lack of research funding in this sector. So there is a lack of research in this sector. Almost, if you see, the industry is almost 258 billions earlier before 2020, but they are expecting it to increase to a double that industry. Then this industry is driven by growth in organized retail, changing consumer behavior and increasing consumerism in tier 2 and tier 3 industries. Okay, tier 1 industries, okay, like metro cities, they will have access to the processed foods easily. But whereas if you see the tier 2 and tier 3 cities, they don't have access to the big malls, and they don't have a direct access to the processed products. If you can increase the logistics in between them, if you can increase the processed food reach towards them, then the food processing industries, the turnover of this food processing industries, and as well as the GDP contribution of the food processing industries will be increased as much as possible. Then who are the key players in these food processing sectors? Okay, we might have known all these products which you are seeing on the screen. Then the first one is the PepsiCo. Okay, like we are drinking drinking Pepsi, Cola, and everything like Lay's. We are just we are eating this Lay's chips. Then the Tropicana. All this will be manufactured by the PepsiCo company. 7-Up, everything will be manufactured by the PepsiCo company. This is the leading player in the food processing sector. Earlier, this food processing sector is concerned more. It is a concern of more about the small scale industries like pickling industries. Okay, many small scale industries have taken up the pickling process of fruits, vegetables, and everything. But now the big industries, big players like Patanjali has come into the existence. Then GSK Group. So GSK GlaxoSmithKline. So GSK Group, which we are taking like we are taking Horlicks, Pediasure, everything will be manufactured by this one. Iodex will be manufactured by this GSK Group. Then the Mapro fruit juices. So Mapro Group that will produce the fruit juices, jellies, jams, everything will be produced by the Mapro groups. Then Haldirams, we already know this one, the Haldirams. So Haldirams Bhujia, sweets, okay, Haldiram Rasagulla, everything will be produced by this Haldiram groups. This is also a popular brand. Then Dabur Vatika, Real Pulp Juice, and Dabur Amla. All this will be produced by this Dabur group. It is also a popular group. Then Parley, what we are eating, biscuits, chocolates, everything will be manufactured by this Parley group. It is also a big group. Then Nestle. Nestle corn flakes, which we are taking, corn Cerelacs, everything will be just manufactured by this Nestle group. So these are all the large, big players in the key players in the Indian food processing industries. So there is a large scope for investment in the food processing industries. So what are the key driven factors? What are the factors which are affecting this food industry? Then what are the challenges which are faced by this food industry? So the key challenges faced by this food industry is poor supply chain linkages. So poor supply chain linkages. If you see the logistics in between the sector, like agricultural feeds to the food processing industry, there is a poor logistics in between these two. When there is a poor logistics in between the supplier and the consumer, then obviously some part of the food will be lost, some part of the food will be degraded. So India's agricultural market has a long and fragmented supply chain that results in high wastage and high cost, especially due to seasonality, perishability, and variability of produce. So if you see, there is a lot of seasonal fruits out there. So preservation of seasonal fruits, we don't have that technology, we don't have much high technology, we don't have to preserve that one, though we also lacking behind the supply chain management. So supply chain management is not there, the proper logistics is not there in between the consumer and this producer. So in between this transportation only, we are losing large amount of, we are wasting large amount of agricultural produce. Thus the cost of the particular produce has been increasing two-fourths or three-fourths depending on the market demand. So that's the major issue which are facing by the Indian food processing sector. So if we have a proper logistics, proper supply chain management in between the producer and in between the industry, then we can reduce the wastage, we can reduce the cost to a larger extent. So the next problem is infrastructure bottleneck. So we don't have an advocate infrastructure to store the food harvest. So like a cold storage, we don't have. The export related infrastructure for agricultural produce is grossly inadequate, especially at seaport and airports. More than 30% of the produce from the fields gets spoiled due to poor post-harvesting facilities and lack of adequate storage infrastructure. So we don't have a adequate storage infrastructure. Like inside our country only, we are facing a lot of problem due to the unavailability of cold storage, refrigerated transport. So when we want to export our harvest to other countries, what we have to do, we have to have an adequate infrastructure at our seaports and the airports. We are lacking behind that one. If you have an advocate storage facility at the seaports and the airports, the wastage of the food will be very minimum. So 30% of the food has been wasted in just transporting from airport to the different countries. So we don't have an advocate infrastructure. So one bottleneck is this one. One challenge faced by our industry, food processing industry, is this one, infrastructure bottlenecks. The next one is a lack of skilled manpower. We don't have a skilled manpower. As if you see, many food processing industries, the courses are also very limited for the food processing. So because nobody wants to take this food processing industry, because they don't have a awareness that there is a large scope for employment in the food processing industry also, because many large players has come into existence. Earlier, the food processing industry is the only concern for the small scale industries or a medium MSME, medium scale industries. But now it is many big players has come into existence. So you can also concentrate for the employment in the food processing industry also. If you have a skills, then you can improve the food processing industry. But lot of, due to the unavailability of this skilled manpower, lot of food processing industries are employing the low skilled workers or laborers they are working with. So you can concentrate in this field also. The agricultural workforce is inadequately skilled across different levels of food processing. So because of this lack of skills, they are employing a low grade, or we can say the low skilled persons in their food processing industries. Then the next bottleneck or the next challenges faced by this food industry is low adherence to quality standards. So quality standards, we have a ISO certifications, we have this one certification, some certification, I don't remember that one, FSSA, food processing standards, FSSI, this organization is there in the New Delhi. FSSAI, okay, Food Processing Standards Association of India, something is there. So it will set a standards. So all the standards according to the ISO definition, they will set a standard for the adulteration of the milk products or the adulteration of the foods. Everything it will be specified that standards. But many industries they will not follow their guidelines to put a standards. So there is a low adherence to the quality standards in our India. So India lacks basic standards and certification infrastructure. There is no standard certification. If you see some packaged food, in that one FSSAI license, you will notice that one. So license is also they are keeping for the namesake they are keeping that one. Nobody is coming from the food sector to verify that one whether they are producing according to their guidelines, whether they are producing according to their standards or not. They are not at all checking that one because there is a lack of manpower in that particular government organization FSSAI. There's a lack of manpower. There is lack of standards in that one. So if you can improve that infrastructure, that manpower there, so somebody will come and check that standards. So food processing industry, nobody knows. Many people don't know that there is a controlling organization is also there for the food processing. So many people will start a small scale businesses like preparing this snacks and everything. But now if you see the recent development in this food sector is everybody, even the sweet shops has to specify this one expiry date for the particular sweets. Okay, only in the last week itself government of India has made a clear guidelines that every sweet shop has to specify the expiry date and the date of manufacturing for these sweets. So until now, there is a practice that sweet shops will sold their retains that they sweets any time. So there is no expiry date for the sweets. Now the government of India in the last week just came the report that they have made it compulsory to specify the date of expiry on that one. So we don't have a standards. So we are also simply we are not adhering to the rules, this food processing industry rules. Because of that, we don't have a manpower. Then given the size of the food processing industry, there is a huge gap in the availability of laboratories, trained manpower and certification agencies. So we don't have infrastructure in these things also. We don't have a laboratories first of all. Only very limited laboratories it is. As per my knowledge, the food certification laboratory is there in India, this New Delhi and Chennai it is there. So nowhere it is available, this food processing laboratories. There's a lack of the trained manpower also. And there is no private players in this certifying agencies. So because of this, we are facing many challenges in the food processing sector. Then what are the key drivers and for the growth of food processing industry, especially concerned about India? So consumer spending on food. If you see the consumer spending, as per the reports of this ASSOCHAM, around the Indians will spend around 31 to 35 percentage on the groceries only. Okay, household groceries. When you see the developed countries, only they are spending 16 to 17% on the groceries. Rest of them they are just spending or saving, just remains in the savings. Whereas if you see Indians are more spending on the grocery purchase, around 31 to 35 percentage means it's a very huge amount. So there is a large scope. This is a key driver to invest in the food processing sector. Then the change in consumer taste and preference. If you see in our Indians, the processed foods are not that much popular. If you see in the developed cities like metro cities or the tier one cities, they are only have a direct access to the processed industry, processed foods. Okay, if you see the tier 2 cities and tier 3 cities, they don't have a direct access to the one. If you change the consumer taste towards the processed industry, processed foods, that will be advantageous for the development of the food processing industry. So I am not saying you should increase this what we say this processed foods, but processed foods will also have an advantage when you just properly associate with the guidelines which are given by the FSSAI. Then the processed food is also very good because they are just converting that food and increasing the shelf life of that particular food. So if you change the consumer behavior, if you can change the consumer taste towards the preferences which the industry is associated with, then the food processing industry will be developed the two folds. So mainly the access to the people from tier 2 and tier 3 cities is a major game changer in the food processing industry. Then the growth in food export. Okay, we are only exporting until the 14 to 13 to 14% of our food produced we can able to export to other countries. When you have a proper infrastructure, okay, like at a seaport and at the airport, we have a proper refrigerated infrastructure, we can export to the maximum of 30 to 35%. We can export whatever we are producing through the agricultural activities. We can export nearly 30 to 35 percentage of that, so that we can gain a foreign returns from that. Then the availability of cheap workforce. We have an advantage of availability of cheap workforce here, but we have a lack of skilled manpower here. So if you can increase the skills in the food processing sector, we so that that manpower will be skilled. So the availability of cheap workforce is the basic strong point for India, but the lack of skilled manpower is the drawback for India. If you have many courses in the college for the food processing sector, then it will increase the skilled manpower so that industry can have a direct access to this skilled manpower. So these are the key drivers for the growth of food processing industry in India. So there is a lot of investment needs in these sectors. So in every key driver, there is a lot of investment needs. So government of India is developing towards this one. So they just invited the foreign direct investments, FDI we can say. So there is a policy available for this one FDI. What types of this we call what type of investment the foreign industries can put into that one. If the FDIs has been invited directly, then it will have a direct advantage to create a food parks so that we can ensure our food safety. Then the fiscal benefits. Okay, if you see many medium scale and many small scale industries will have a benefits by associating with the policies, various policies. How they can benefit? There is a subsidy available. If you want to start the food processing industry, there is a subsidy available for from government of India. That is called a fiscal benefits. Government is giving support in this sector. Then increased focus on infrastructure. So the big manufacturing industries, big food processing industries has to play a major role here, because infrastructure can't be created in one night. So infrastructure, they have to develop creation of more amount of cold storage, creation of this refrigerated transport, road and rail transport facilities, so that a big players has to come to invest in this sector. Then revamped national mission on food processing. Okay, there are many government of India schemes are coming in order to revamp the national mission, in order to have a food security, in order to have a food parks around there. The first food processing that food park is supposed to be started in Uttar Pradesh. Okay, it has been just they have closed that project. Okay, I don't know change of this government from Congress to BJP. They just changed that one. Otherwise, we supposed to start the food processing, food park in the Uttar Pradesh. So these are the key drivers for the growth of food processing, and the support from India is from Indian government is also there. So if you want to start a medium scale or a small scale industry, there's a support, fiscal support from the government of India. You can look into this issue. Then what are the operations which are carried out in every food industry? Okay, the operations in every food industry is, first we have to the harvesting of food is concerned more about the agricultural feeds. They will look after these activities, agricultural activities. So after this producing the agricultural activities, when we produce some food, so we have to harvest that one. We have to after post harvesting, we have to take them to the consumer. Before taking them to the consumer, there is a lot of storage we need to require. There is a lot of transport we need to require. If required, we need to preserve that with some processing technique. So before going to the consumer, we have to handle that food with the utmost interest. Otherwise, that food will be entirely spoiled. So there are four major operations in any type of food industry which can be carried out. So first one is the food storage. So this is more concerned about the post harvest food storage as well as post processing food storage. So post harvest is whenever you obtain a certain product from the agricultural feed, it is called as a post harvest. So post harvest also the storage is required, and as well as when you process some foods. Okay, when you process some this one fish you process, after processing, after freezing that one, you want to store that in a frozen condition. If you want to store under refrigerated condition, what you will do, you will store food. So that is also a food storage. So these two operation after the post harvest and before the consumer, nothing but the post processing. which we'll call that one, needs a food storage. So improved cold storage facility we need, and improved refrigeration cycles, and new refrigerants we have to invest. Like if you see, ammonia is one type of refrigerant. So if you can invent the new types of refrigerants, we can it can offer a low toxic effect on the refrigeration cycle. It will be a very advantageous. And better insulation, improved processes. Okay, cold storage, due to the lack of better insulation for the cold storages, we are losing lot of post harvested materials. Around 30 percentage we are losing. So the next process is, if you store the food, next one is, if the food can't be stored for the long period of time, what we will do, we will just process that food to some value added products. So how can we process that food? The example is some fruit. If you see, the fruits will be spoiled immediately within 1 or 2 days. When you convert that food into some dried fruits, when you remove, when you dehydrate that one, what will happen, that dry foods we can store for the long period of time. That is nothing but increase of shelf period. How can we do that? By dehydration we can do that. One way is to preserve that by dehydrating that particular fruit into the dry fruit, we can do that. Other is by refrigerating that particular fruit or vegetable under the refrigerated conditions, we can do that. And freeze drying is also there. Then food packaging, but packaging into a airtight container or air seal, we can process this one. Otherwise, the popular example for this one is pickling of the fruits or the vegetables. When you prepare a pickle, how why we do prepare these pickles? If you prepare a pickle, the shelf life of that fruit or the vegetable will be increased to a large extent, so that we can consume for the long period of time. If you see, there are many pickles are available. If you see the chicken or some mutton, everything, it will be spoiled within 1 day if you didn't freeze that one. Okay, to increase the shelf life of that particular one, we will do the pickling process. So pickle, when you convert into the pickle form, it will be increased. We can consume that particular pickle of the chicken for more than 2 months. That's the shelf life of that one. So in order to increase the shelf life so that we can consume for long period of time, we will do the food processing. Then after processing, what we have to do, once again we have to store. Before reaching to the consumer, we have to store that fruit. Then once again the food storage is also coming. That is nothing but post processing food, post processing storage. Then next, after processing, if required, the consumer is located on the some other location, in the long location, what we will do, we have to transport that food. This is also post harvest transport and post processing transport. Post harvest transport is, after harvesting from the agricultural field, we have to transport. So after processing the foods into some value added product also, we have to transport. Transportation in each and every stage, the transportation is also an integral part of the food industry. Then to preserve that food, if the food is very sensitive to the heat, or very sensitive to the hydration, very sensitive to the atmosphere, what we will do, we want a refrigerated rolls and rail carriers. So we are lacking behind this road and rail carriers which are refrigerated. So the transportation involves refrigerated road and rail carriers. Then the next one is the food preservation. So we need to preserve the food. We need to process it, one way to preserve the food, and other way is with adding some additives. We can preserve the food for the long period of time. Processing is converting that particular post harvested food to some value added product. Then preserving is without any processing, or after processing also with adding certain additives, we can preserve that food for the long period of time. So food preservation is also an important operation in the food industry. Then food preservation involves the inert gas blanketing of goods. If you see, airtight, air sealed fruits packets or food packets, that all comes under this inert gas. If required, some inert gas will be injected into that one, so that some atmospheric gases cannot attack, some oxidation process cannot be involved that one. If oxidation takes place, some heat will be increased inside that fruit. That fruits will be ripened. So when it is ripened, that natural sugars will be lost in from that fruit, and flavors will be lost from that fruit. So because of that, we will create a airtight, or if required, some inert gas will be injected into that airtight sealed containers. Then food freezing, we have to freeze that fruit in order to preserve that one. And the use of some additives, using some additives. Okay, if you see in some preserved foods, there will be a code word like preservative 221, preservative 223. That's all the preservatives, okay, which are the trade names, that one. composition additive, but so these are all the operations carried out in the then the first one is the food storage. What is this food storage? We already discussed improved refrigeration cycle, improved cold storage mechanism. Everything will comes under the food storage. Why we have to store it? Why we can directly we can use directly the food, whatever the food stuff coming from the agriculture, but there is a problem in that one. Foods, when we just pluck from the fruit or some vegetable, when we pluck from the plant, what will happen? It will continue to mature. Okay, mature is nothing but it will lose its water. With the chemical or physical breakdown, it will just lose its water. So it will be just in a dry condition. Okay, not that much completely water cannot be removed. The water breakdown will just take place. Because of that, it will have a respiration. Because every fruit or every thing will have a respiration, it will produce some heat inside that one. So that heat, that self heat, will just ripen that fruit or ripen that vegetable. If you that ripening will happen through the loss of that sugars inside that one. Then the loss of flavor will be lost, and the sweetness or the natural excellence, whatever the excellence which are present in that particular fruit, will be lost. That's why we are calling that, whether we are asking to the vendor that whether these fruits are fresh or not, whether these vegetables are fresh or not. If that vegetables are fresh, its natural flavors will be there, its natural sugars will be available, its natural sweetening characteristics will be available, its natural excellence will be available in that fruit or vegetable. If that is not fresh, all this mechanism will take place. Lot of loss of water due to the respiration, that particular heat will be produced, that will be degraded, that fruit or vegetable will be degraded, its flavor will be lost. In some cases, especially at high temperatures or some humid conditions, that molds will be formed, some disease causing pathogens will be attacked to that fruits or vegetables. Then what will happen? Naturally we will catch the disease from consuming that food products. So we need some food storage, proper storage infrastructure we need. So that all comes under the food storage infrastructure, food storage operation in the food industry. So it means post pre-processing. Pre-processing means post harvested. So after the agricultural feeds, whatever the products are obtained is called as a post harvest. After harvesting the fruits, we have to store, and at the same time post processing or before the consumer reach. Okay, after just processing that fruit, we will store in some malls, big malls or the big supermarkets. That's called a post harvesting, post processing, before the reach of the consumer. In every stage we need a refrigerated cycles, or we need some proper storage mechanism. Because of this reason, we want this operation. Food storage is a very integral part of every food industry. Then what are the steps to store the food with minimum damage? Okay, anyway damage is going to cause. If we pluck that fruit from a particular plant, or a particular vegetable plucked from the particular plant, anyway the damage is going to happen. To minimize the damage, we have to follow certain guidelines, that storage area should be well ventilated to dissipate the heat added. If you see the storage container is having a small holes, through this one the ventilation will be there, so that the heat, the gas, the heat which is produced inside that one will be just released to the outside atmosphere, so that the heat will not be that particular food will not be heated more. Then shade water, we should create some shade. We should be stored our foods in under some shade, or nothing but some building or something. Then water baths. If you have seen some vendors, they are continuously just spraying some water on the vegetables or their fruits, whatever they are just sending. That vendors will just spray some water, because spraying this will just lower the damage to the food stuff. So if you see this one, the spraying water will just lower the damage which is causing naturally to the food stuff. Then graded materials should be stored, and all bruised, shriveled, discolored and soiled portions should be removed. Before storing anything, if something is already degraded, just we have to remove that one. If we have not removed that one, then this automatically will attack other materials also. This ripening will be happening there. This bruised or shrived, all this will be spoiled the other foodstuffs also. Because of this, before storing any type of material, whether we have to see some of the shrived materials are there, shriveled materials are there, some of the bruised materials are there. If that is there, we have to remove, we have to separate them from the fresh material. Then we can store that in the cold, ventilated and cold storage conditions. Okay, I think this is complete.
Sir, today and tomorrow, 2 days holidays, sir.
Okay, if you have any doubt, just contact me. This is all for today. Thank you for listening.
Audio.